Oh my god.
Julia.
Already?
Sorry. Hi, guys, and welcome to our podcast, The Global Change Project. My name is Julia, and my topics are agriculture and animal agriculture. And I just feel really passionate about my topic because I love animals, and I grew up kind of around the agricultural industry, so I thought it would be a good topic to kind of share with you guys.
Hi guys, my name is Katia. My topics are deforestation and greenhouse gases. I'm currently a senior at Concord High School, and I love nature, so I chose these topics.
Hello, my name is Geselle Pulido. My two topics are CO2 in the ocean and plastic pollution, and I'm also a senior at Concord High.
Hi, my name is Hailey Lopez, and my two topics are fashion and the makeup industry. And I chose these two topics because they are some of the main causes to climate change.
We chose to do this topic because it's part of our senior project, but we're also very passionate about it, and we want to be able to educate the community on it.
We also take part on the Human Services Academy, which basically is a place at our school that encourages the community to come together and help one another.
Okay, so today's first topic will be the history of climate change.
So, if you guys were wondering what climate change is, well, over the years, many climate scientists have agreed that, like, the main cause of the current global warming trend is human expansion of the greenhouse effect. And it is believed that us humans are the main causes of global climate change as we continue to spread all these deadly chemicals such as CO2 or carbon dioxide that come from the making of our tools, clothing, transportation, and many other objects for our everyday use. So as we spread them into the atmosphere, they basically react with the climate, making it react with different areas of the planet.
So we've known about climate change since the 1800s, and by we, I mean like almost the whole world as a whole. And I was just saying how, I don't know, it's kind of frustrating because from what I was reading, when they first found out about climate change, it wasn't a concern whatsoever, and people were kind of like fascinated by it. And I feel like we could have prevented a lot of the stuff that's happening now if we would have taken action when we found out that climate change was a thing.
You know why I feel like people didn't choose to acknowledge it? It's because I feel like a lot of people didn't really think it was a problem. Like they thought maybe it'll get better. I feel like people now they don't believe, some people still don't believe that it's a thing. So I feel like back then it was more of a trend to not believe in it and just ignore it basically.
And since people didn't really believe about it in the past, we're not really being taught that climate change is actually real and it's actually affecting us in so many ways that older people do not actually acknowledge.
Many famous people as well don't believe in climate change, and they're spreading these ideas to their supporters. So that trend has been going around for a while now.
Yeah, and so in the 1800s when they found out, so it actually became in 1950 was when kind of everything was, how do you say it, proven. And so they knew that CO2 was collecting in the atmosphere, and they knew that it was going to be eventually harmful to us. But like Katia was saying, I feel like they, in a way, it's understandable why they reacted the way they did, because they obviously can't look into the future and where we are now. And I feel like then it probably looked like a much smaller problem than it actually became.
Climate change was proven in 1950, and it was proven. So I don't understand why people just didn't become more start living a sustainable life. But at the same time, I feel like they couldn't do that. But now we can.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Even then, I feel people, if you would want to try to save the planet, you would get judged for it because you'd be the only one. So that's why I feel like the trend of not being able to do it would not be possible at all.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of like we were talking about how it was a trend. I feel like back then, if you were like associating yourself with people who wanted to like save the planet or like, I don't know, like clean up humanity's act, you probably would have been seen the same way that like people like the hippies were seen or something later on in the 70s. You know what I mean? Like you would have been seen as like someone who's just going against society to go against society.
Yeah, I think that's like totally correct. Like, I don't know, because people tend to judge on things they don't understand.
Another thing I put in the notes was the person who actually created the greenhouse gas theory, which was Joseph Fourier, I think that's his name. He was a physicist, and so he is kind of the main reason why we were able to prove a lot of the things that are considered fact today. And I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. So his theory's actually been changed multiple times throughout the years. So clearly, like, science has evolved to the point where we know exactly where we're at. And like, it goes back to like the people who are still like basically being ignorant and like saying that it's not a real thing.
Even then, I think that scientists may want to put their information out there, but certain people above them won't let them, so people won't panic or they don't want people to actually believe it.
Yeah.
So
and I think we're all going to talk, all of our like topics kind of have an industry behind them, if you'll notice. Like there's the beauty industry, the agricultural industry, like all of our topics have kind of like a background, like a boss. And I feel like those are also the people who don't want this to be such like a widespread fact, or the people that are benefiting from it and like getting money from it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just because people are greedy. That's literally the only reason why people don't want to believe in something like this. Like, it's just greediness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Should we talk about how the whole quarantine situation is kind of making the earth heal a little bit?
Oh yeah, like I've seen that, I think in where was it? Venice? Like the canals or whatever, like they're clearing up and like the water's not so dirty and stuff like that. And I've seen like other places too, like where like everything's kind of just growing because a lot of people aren't out.
And yeah, since a lot of factories are the ones who produce the most like pollution, you can see that less and less as the jobs are closing and those factories are closed, that the air is more cleaner and healthier for all of us.
Yeah, as well as transportation has also reduced, so that's something that's had like a bigger impact, because we're so used to like going from one place to another, and all these methods of transportation, says they reduce. I believe that that's something that's helping as well.
But also something that's kind of like a downside to this whole quarantine thing is people are leaving out just basically littering their gloves or whatever, their masks and stuff like that. Like, it's not hard to put it in the trash can. Like, so there's pros and cons to this whole like quarantine thing.
Yeah.
That's true. Also, like, I don't want to sound like, I don't know, like a pessimist or like something, but also like a lot of the things that people are so excited about, like the earth is healing itself, I feel like that's also becoming an excuse to like just go back to our old ways. You know what I mean? Like, it's like people are like, oh, it'll heal itself. Like, oh, it's not going to happen. And I feel like we already have that problem. And now that it's actually happening where the earth is like getting better, people are going to use that as an excuse to like not take climate change seriously.
Yeah.
And like also what you guys were saying about the canals, I honestly don't know which one is true, but like apparently the canals, like they are cleaner, like in terms of like boat pollution and stuff. But also like a lot of the reasons why it's clear apparently is just because the dust settles, because when you like ride a boat there, the sand like moves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I feel like, I don't know, I feel like people need to like look into that and kind of like find a balance, like in what's true and what's not, because we also don't want people to think that like everything's perfect and that like now climate change doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Do you think that people choose not to believe in climate change because they're not educated on it? Or they're just...
I believe that, and then I also believe it's because they're like easy to persuade by other people that don't believe in climate change instead of like educating themselves on the topic.
And I feel like they're just to throw lies out there than the truth, and that's where people get mixed up in the point where climate change is not actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also like people are just like genuinely scared. Like I feel like it's easier to ignore a problem than to be scared by it, like, and to like have to deal with it and come like face to face with the problem. And I feel like that's like just ignoring it and acting like it doesn't exist. That's not going to help, obviously, but I feel like it's a lot easier to handle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do you guys think like it will still be a thing in future generations if we don't act now?
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, right
Yep.
now we're dealing with it where we have the hottest temperatures and the coldest temperatures, and like just things that are already happening that we're dealing with that people didn't do to help stop it in the past. So I feel like even then it's going to get even worse in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we already are the generation that's still being affected. Like Geselle was saying, like this was a thing of this didn't just exist in our generation. Like we are the generation that's being affected, and that's going to continue to happen because we grew up this way, and like we're not doing anything to solve the problem. And I feel like our generation's generally pretty good with like speaking their mind, but there's still like a ridiculous amount of people who are doing like little to nothing to actually help the situation.
I feel like those people that are doing nothing to help the situation are the older group of the generation, because they truly believe it's not happening and they don't want to do anything about it. And the younger generations are the ones trying to figure out ways to motivate those who don't believe to do it, but they just don't want to.
Because the older generation, it's not their problem. Like I'm sorry, but they're gonna be dead soon. Like so like it's not their problem. So like they're basically like giving their problems to us and like another future generation, and like just basically like it's your problem now, like not mine. So it's like they don't care. It's like, and it's so obvious.
I also believe that it's one of those things that people believe that since it wasn't a problem before, then it shouldn't be a problem now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And also like I feel like climate change is also something that's really inconsistent if you don't like keep an eye on it. So like for example, like going back to the history, like in 1970 the earth began to cool because of climate change, because it's not only global warming. And so in 1970 the earth was cooling, and in 1988 they experienced their hottest year. So I feel like they're kind of like, oh, it happens but then it goes away, and then it happens and then it goes away, because there wasn't as much coverage on climate change as there is today. And I feel like it's just easy for people to like forget about it. Oh yeah, so like you guys were like, we were talking about how one of you said that like it's not affecting them, so it's not their problem.
Me.
Yeah, so it wasn't until the 2000s where people were actually really scared of like the future. And again, going back to all these like industries and like powerful people, like 2000s was also the time where it was widely accepted, but there was still a lot of people, specifically politicians, that would still argue that it wasn't real.
Did you already read the election of Donald Trump?
No, I didn't want to talk about the Cheeto. What
about the Paris Climate Agreement?
No, I didn't. I didn't talk about anything after 2000.
Okay, I'll talk about the prior one. Okay, so in 2015, do you guys know about the Paris Climate Agreement?
No.
This is something that should be talked about more. Okay, so in 2015, 195 countries pledged to set targets for their own greenhouse gases cuts and to report their progress. So basically, what they're doing is they're cutting their emissions of greenhouse gases. And y'all know what greenhouse gases are?
Enlighten us, Katia.
Okay, so hold on. So greenhouse gases are a gas that contributes to the greenhouse effect by absorbing infrared radiation. Like, for example, the most common one is carbon dioxide. So you guys know what that is because we all took chemistry or bio, I don't remember, science. So, greenhouse gases is a gas that absorbs and emits radiant energy within the thermal infrared range. So basically, for example, cars make a lot of greenhouse gases because they make carbon dioxide, and that air goes up into the planet, basically, like, and then it takes a while for it to be able to leave, basically, and when we have too many of them, it destroys the Earth's like layer that protects us from the sun rays. So when there's too many of them, it destroys the thing. So the planet gets hotter, and that's it.
So okay, so with the Paris climate agreement, it was 2016 when the new president of the United States was elected, and so he actually withdrew from the Paris Treaty, which was, I think, one of the only like political things that was being done against climate change that I know of. I don't know if you guys know about any other like laws or something.
No, the only one I've heard about that was actually like happening and taking action.
Yeah. Do you guys want to start talking about where we are now?
Yeah.
Sure.
So nowadays, in our time, a lot of people have been speaking against climate change and like defending the planet and finding solutions on how to keep the planet healthier with more reusable items and how to cut out plastic pollution, cut out carbon dioxide and stuff like that. You guys want to touch base on that?
Yeah.
Well, I interviewed a lady the other day, and she was talking about how they organized a march in Canada, trying to like educate people about climate change and why it's a problem. We should take action on it, and I think about 3,000 people took part of it, which is good because we know that we did our job educating the community as a whole on it.
I think it's good. Like, for example, last year in the summer in June, I don't know a specific date, but I know it's June. There was a small march for the Earth, and I think that's actually like really cool. Like people like are like fighting for it, and what I see the most is young people fighting for it, like kids basically like our age that are just going out and marching, and like they're fighting for what they believe in, which I think is really cool.
I feel like they're the most dedicated in changing the ways of how we live today.
I also did. Oh, you can go.
Sorry. Continue.
Okay. I did a poll on my business account, and then the people that follow me, their age range goes from like 13 to like, I believe, like 18. And I asked, what do you guys think are some of the causes of climate change? And they said they surprisingly were pretty educated on it, which it's something I agree with what Geselle said, or Katia. And they just said that what we basically said, which was like pollution was one of the big answers, and then how we leave our garbage around and just stuff they've personally seen, which I think is actually pretty surprising, knowing that people underestimate the younger generations, but we are pretty educated on it, in my opinion. Like, we've done a good job at educating others.
Yeah.
I think so too. Like, I know like there was like the whole movement of like stop using plastic straws because like it hurts like turtles or whatever. And I think that's a good way to start. Like, but I feel like we could be doing more towards like, for example, like don't ride, like take walks instead of like riding a car. Like don't eat meat for like once a week, like, you know. And basically just I seen a lot of people use like reusable plastic like Ziploc bags, which I
Oh,
think
me and Giselle were trying to get those.
yeah, and that's like I feel like we can find ways to be more resourceful. Like people are already doing it, so like why can't like older people do that?
Yeah.
And
And I
also,
know
go ahead.
I know makeup artists have like turned down big deals with like companies that test on animals and are like they're hurting the planet, which I think is also like a good way to start because like using your platform to make a change has also been very impactful
That's
among our society.
true. Like you see one big makeup company go cruelty free, and then you see a bunch of more companies follow through, and then a lot of makeup artists say like, "Hey, let's start doing this," and then a bunch of more people start following into the trend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of the better examples, in my opinion, of trends, and how like we were talking about in the history of climate change, how we were talking about how it wasn't like trendy to not agree with people and to think that climate change was real. And I feel like our generation is actually kind of cool, where like interestingly enough, like it's kind of trendy to like fight climate change. Like it's I honestly feel like it's a trend. Like this whole like let's buy metal straws, let's like go vegan and vegetarian. And I don't know, I'm kind of proud of like the trends that like our generation has created in terms of like climate change.
Yeah, like it's pretty cool, like because we're fighting for something that is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Not something super super stupid that just doesn't make sense, but something like this can bring a bunch of people together that can make a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I put on here Greta Thunberg. Do you guys know who that is?
Yeah.
No.
And
Well,
that
I don't.
started the protests and alongside Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. She's Swedish, is it, Katia?
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's Swedish. And um the protest that she actually started with her protesting. I think this was one of the most popular ones where kids were saying, you know, like no plan B, no planet B, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she actually got 17,000 students in 24 countries to join in her protest. So it wasn't like she was like knocking on everyone's door and like begging them to do it. It was our generation like stepping forward and saying like, oh hey, like if this young teenager is doing this, then maybe we should be doing this too. And I thought, I don't know, she's become like a really big like icon in advocacy.
And I've seen her like on social media and stuff, and like I always see grown adults like hating on her for fighting what she believes in.
Wasn't
Like,
sorry, go ahead.
it's okay. You can continue.
Wasn't Donald Trump one of those adults
Mm-hmm.
hating on her because of what she was doing and what big impact she was doing?
Yeah, like for example, when she travels, she doesn't go on airplanes. Like I remember, I don't know where it was she traveled from, but she went on boat. Like she sailed to get to where she was going instead of going on a plane.
Like,
She takes trains and stuff like that. She is vegan, I'm pretty sure. And like she's just fighting for what she believes in, and like so many adults are hating on a 17-year-old.
Yeah. So like how you touched on how like Trump was one of the people that attacked her. I actually forgot, but I have a quote, a tweet that he tweeted out, and he said the concept of global warming was created by and for the Chinese in order to make U.S. manufacturing non-competitive.
Ugh.
So that is what he's blaming climate change. First of all, on a completely different country, and basically it always goes back to the industries, and it's like so frustrating. Like, stop being so greedy and get off your asses. Like, excuse my language, but like do something. And I feel like it's frustrating, especially how we've been talking about how our generation gets so much like hate for doing stupid things. But I feel like right now that we're talking about climate change, we're the only ones, most of us, that are actually doing something.
Yeah, like when I go to the store, I don't really see adults using reusable bags and stuff like that. It's mostly like young teenagers or like people in their young 20s and stuff like that. It's not like adults are actually doing something.
Yeah, and it's not our mess to be cleaning up. Like we were not the generation who, and I'm sure, like, I also don't want to hate on like the past generations. I'm sure that if we were in their shoes, we probably would have been raised the way that they were. But at the same time, it's frustrating that they can't see it for what it is.
Yeah. And I know we were raised like that too, to just like do whatever. And I feel like we were so quick to like change things around and want things to change around.
Yeah. So some notable environmental effects. I feel like we're like talking about it and we're not giving like any examples, but so obviously everyone has heard about the Antarctic ice that's like drifting apart. Yeah, the wildfire seasons are longer, which is like a huge thing, especially, you know, for us we live in California, and that was a really like big part of our life. Yeah, the coral reefs are dying, which is so.
Did she cut off?
Yep.
It's so sad. I think that's what she was gonna say.
I've also noticed how our summers here in California and Arizona have gotten way hotter.
Yes, definitely. I've seen it get to like 110 here.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's crazy. And I know like in certain areas it snows and it gets super cold, like below -degrees.
what's it called? Also here how the weather is so bipolar. Like it can be hot one day and then it's cold and then it's raining.
Yeah.
It's been pretty hot today too.
It is.
And yesterday was literally like I had to get up in the middle of the night and get another blanket because I was freezing last night.
Yeah. It's just like one of those times where things are kicking in and like being serious.
Yeah, and also this is interesting. So because of the weather, specifically global warming, mosquitoes are actually expanding their territory.
Whoa.
Yeah, so the freaking bugs that everyone hates are now like multiplying.
That's no good.
Yeah, actually, do you guys know, like, I'm actually curious, like, what mosquitoes do for the environment?
I don't think they do anything.
Besides blood.
I'm sorry, but they're useless. Like,
besides being like a food for certain predators, that's
yeah, I think, aren't they like alongside like dragonflies? Wait, let me look it up.
I don't know.
This person literally says mosquitoes are almost completely useless.
I mean, what do they do?
They spread diseases.
They provide food and pollination.
Ooh.
I don't. Okay, so it says adult mosquitoes are what feed insect-eating animals such as birds and bats. And then for pollination, they pollinate. It literally says they pollinate some flowers when they consume nectar, and then the list of flowers is like 4 flowers long. What? I don't know. I don't think that we need them. I think
one like insect or animal that's like really good for the planet. I know there's some.
Butterflies.
Bees.
Yeah.
Hailey loves butterflies. No, I just said Hailey loves butterflies.
Oh yeah, I love butterflies.
Oh, I wrote about this in my essay. I wrote about what were they? Oh, otters. Do you guys know otters are really healthy for the planet too?
Really?
Yeah, they're really like when I read it, I was surprised.
You know what? I didn't know that otters hold hands. It's so cute, and then they have a special rock.
No.
So cute.
Oh, okay, hold on. I'm looking for the otter stuff. Keep talking.
I think otters are very cute. They make very cute noises.
I want an otter, but sadly they are wildlife and they should stay like that. Otter. Where's okay. Okay, so this is a quote from, I don't know, I'll keep the website somewhere. So it says, otters chow on invertebrates and sea urchins that would devour the kelp forest if the populations were not controlled. And basically kelp is what absorbs CO2 is one of the like best plants at absorbing CO2 from the ocean and from the planet in general. So they're protecting basically like our planet cleaners.
Aww.
Yeah. They're little warriors.
That's cool though.
Yeah, and it's not just like kelp. They apparently they like do other, like they protect other types of plants, but it's mainly plants that they eat insects from.
One thing that I feel like people always like kind of misinterpret is that trees are the ones that like give us ocean, like not oceans,
Oxygen.
air, yeah, oxygen.
Yeah.
And like trees are very important to us, like very, very important, but it's the ocean that does most of the work.
Yeah.
And I feel like something that needs to be done is we need to take better care of our oceans and the wildlife that's in it. Which we'll get into in another episode with Geselle.
Yeah. Oh, actually, okay. So, where? Oh my God, I'm literally don't know where any of my sources are. But basically, Will Smith. You guys know who Will Smith is?
Yes.
All right. So he's hosting a show. I think it was for National Geographic. You guys all know that I'm obsessed. But he was talking about the Amazon rainforest, and you know how that rainforest is literally like a delicacy to this world.
Don't they call it like the lungs of the earth?
Yeah. So he actually talked about that, and although the rainforest does like emit a lot of like oxygen and like it does really well, most of the oxygen, I think he said like more than half of it actually gets sucked back in or stays inside the forest for all the animals and the other plants in there. And so like
the rainforest it's home to so many animals.
Yeah,
I think huge. Don't quote me on this, but I think hold on, I'm gonna look it up actually, so I can be right.
Okay, while Katia looks it up, so basically in the episode they were talking about a floating river, and it's basically like this giant cloud of fog that is just like full of water. And I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a tower that you can climb in the Amazon rainforest where you can see like so much of the rainforest, and you can actually be above the clouds when it happens, and it's basically just like this ginormous cloud of water, and that's actually where the majority of the oxygen that we're getting from the rainforest truly comes from, because the clouds are kind of moved into all these different areas, and it like kind of spreads the oxygen around. I don't know, I thought that was interesting.
Okay, so I found it. So it says the Amazon rainforest alone contains around 10% of the world's known species. Just about every type of animal lives in rainforests. In fact, though rainforests cover less than 2% of Earth's total surface area, they are home to 50% of Earth's plants and animals, according to the Nature Conservancy.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. I thought that was interesting how like we, like, don't get me wrong, it's still so important to us. Like, we would not survive without that rainforest, but like we're also not the only people using it.
And I feel like that's what people like take like don't understand. Like, it's not just for us.
Yeah. before we end it, let me recommend this National Geographic magazine to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me talk about this magazine real quick. I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk about National Geographic, but it's a really good magazine. So basically, if you get a monthly National Geographic subscription, or even just go to the store like once a month, National Geographic actually released, in my opinion, one of their best magazines so far. And it's the April 2020 edition, and it's Earth Day edition. And so one side of the magazine is actually called How We Saved the Planet in 2070. And then if you flip it around upside down, it says How We Lost the Planet in 2070. And I think it's literally so interesting. And I hate reading, but this is so interesting. And I don't know, I recommend it. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh my god.
Don't judge me.
Okay, so this has been it for today's episode, correct?
Yes.
Our next episode shall be up maybe
Next week.
next week. Yeah. Before we end this week's podcast, Hailey wants to say a joke. Gotta introduce it.
Okay. Our joke of the week is, what did the sea say to the shore?
What, Hailey?
Nothing. It just went back.
I hate you.
Okay, we can end it now.
Happy Earth Day, everybody.
Happy Earth Day!
Happy Earth Day!
Clap, clap, woo!
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 So this has been it for today's episode, guys. Thank you to whoever's listening. We shall have the next episode up by next week, so make sure to tune into that so you can get more educated on what should be greenhouse gases and deforestation.
Also, don't forget to follow our social media. Our Instagram account is She for a Change. It will be posting on there daily about the earth and events that might come up.
Can I just say something really quick before you stop recording?
Yeah.
The planet is 4.543 billion years old.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's amazing. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.